Welcome to Top Tens and Facts, the channel where we tell you the truths that most people are too afraid to say out loud. Today's story is titled, Don't Be a Nice Guy. Now, before we dive in, let me make something crystal clear. I'm not saying you should be rude. I'm not saying you should walk through life with arrogance, cruelty, or disrespect. That's not power. That's weakness wearing a mask. But here's the truth. Being a nice guy is a trap. It's a prison. It's a way of living that takes your strength away piece by piece until you're left frustrated, overlooked, and invisible. You see, society tells men from a young age, be nice. Don't argue. Don't upset anyone. Always put others first. And so we grow up believing that if we make people happy, if we give enough, if we sacrifice ourselves, we'll be rewarded with love, respect, and success. But that's a lie. Because in reality, being nice is often just another word for being weak. The nice guy avoids conflict instead of facing it. He hides his true opinions because he doesn't want to rock the boat. He gives, but secretly expects something in return: validation, affection, recognition. And when it doesn't come, he's left bitter, confused, and empty. And the scariest part? Most men don't realize they're stuck in this cycle until it's too late. They look back at their lives and wonder, why did I give so much and receive so little? So today, I want to tell you a story. The story of David, a man who lived as a nice guy, hit rock bottom, and transformed into someone strong, respected, and authentic. Along the way, we'll break down the psychology of why nice guys fail, and the steps every man must take to break free from this destructive pattern. By the end, you'll see that the goal isn't to be a nice guy. The goal is to be a good man, strong, kind, respected, a man who commands attention, not because he begs for it, but because he lives with purpose. So, let's begin. David grew up in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew each other's names. From an early age, he was taught to always be polite. His parents told him, don't argue, don't upset people, be the good boy. And David listened. He thought that if he followed these rules, the world would reward him. In school, David became the helper. If a classmate forgot their homework, David let them copy. If kids teased him, he laughed along, even when it hurt. He learned quickly that the easiest way to survive was to stay invisible, to never make waves, to never push back. But here's the hidden problem. By always putting others first, David was slowly training himself to put himself last. Fast forward to adulthood. At work, David was the guy who stayed late to finish projects nobody else wanted. He covered for co-workers who slacked off. He never said no, never asked for more, never demanded credit. And when promotion time came, guess what? He was overlooked. His boss respected his work ethic, but didn't see him as a leader. Why? Because leaders don't beg for approval. They command respect. And in relationships, David had the same problem. He showered women with attention, compliments, and gifts. He bent over backward to please them. But instead of being admired, he was ignored. Instead of being chosen, he was told, "You're such a nice guy, but I just don't feel that way about you." Think about that for a second. Have you ever heard those words? Have you ever been told you're nice, but not enough? It's one of the most painful experiences a man can go through. And David went through it again and again. The truth is, women didn't respect him because he didn't respect himself. His niceness wasn't kindness, it was neediness, and people can smell that from a mile away. Nice guys believe they're being selfless, but in reality, they're acting out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being disliked, fear of standing out. And so they hide their real selves behind a mask of endless agreeableness. But the mask eventually cracks because no man can live his entire life pretending. That's the making of a nice guy, a man trained to please, programmed to serve, conditioned to avoid conflict. And it always leads to the same result: failure, frustration, and invisibility. One evening, David came home from work, exhausted. Another long day of fixing other people's mistakes, another meeting where his ideas were ignored. He had just found out that a co-worker, someone less experienced than him, was promoted to a higher position. And as if that wasn't enough, the woman he had been pursuing for months finally gave him the dreaded line, "You're such a nice guy, but I don't see you that way." He sat in his apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same questions over and over in his head. Why do I do everything right, yet still get nothing? Why does nobody see my value? Why am I always overlooked? Have you ever asked yourself those same questions? It was in that moment that David realized something powerful. Being nice wasn't the problem. The problem was that he used niceness as a substitute for strength. The world didn't ignore him because he was kind. It ignored him because he was weak. That night, David hit rock bottom. But rock bottom can also be the foundation for a new life. Before I tell you how David transformed his life, let me ask you something. Have you ever bitten your tongue instead of speaking your truth? Have you ever said yes to something you didn't want just to avoid conflict? Have you ever felt like people like you but don't really respect you? If you answered yes to any of these, then you know exactly what David went through, and you also know it's time for a change. Drop a 100 in the comments right now if you're done being overlooked. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button. Because on this channel, we don't hand out sugar-coated lies. We give you the raw truth that can transform your life. Now let's talk about David's transformation and how you can begin yours. David made a decision that night. He wasn't going to be invisible anymore. He was done living for approval. Here's how he changed his life. 1. Boundaries. The first thing David did was learn to say no. At work, when coworkers tried to dump tasks on him, he said, "I've got my own responsibilities." At first, people were shocked, but soon they respected him more. 2. Speaking his truth. He stopped nodding along with everyone. He started voicing his real opinions, not aggressively, but with confidence. Suddenly, people paid attention when he spoke. 3. Living with purpose. Instead of chasing validation, David began chasing his own goals. He started working on his fitness. He learned new skills. He pursued his passions. His energy shifted, and people could feel it. 4. Walking away. Perhaps the most powerful change, David learned to walk away from toxic workplaces, from one-sided friendships, from relationships where he wasn't respected, and nothing is more powerful than a man who doesn't beg for acceptance. Slowly but surely, David transformed. His confidence grew. His presence commanded respect. And for the first time, he wasn't just the nice guy. He was a man others looked up to. Now let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped living for approval and started living for purpose? At work, his boss started taking him seriously, not because he worked harder than anyone else, he always had, but because he finally carried himself like someone who deserved respect. In relationships, David no longer begged for affection. He no longer chased. And ironically, that's when people began chasing him. His confidence was magnetic. His authenticity was attractive. In life, David felt free. He didn't need approval to feel worthy. He respected himself first, and the world followed. Here are the lessons from David's journey. 1. Being liked is not the same as being respected. 2. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential. 3. Kindness without strength is weakness. 4. The world respects the man who respects himself first. And if you take nothing else from this story, take this. Stop trying to be a nice guy. Be a good man. So here's the truth. A nice guy hides who he really is, hoping for approval. A good man lives with strength, honesty, and purpose, whether people approve or not. A nice guy bends over backward for respect he never gets. A good man earns respect by respecting himself first. Ask yourself, which one are you? Are you the man who sacrifices himself for approval? Or are you the man who stands tall in his truth? If this story hit you, then it's time to make a choice. Stop being invisible. Stop being overlooked. Stop being the nice guy. Be a good man. Be respected. Be strong. Subscribe to Top 10s and Facts, because here we don't hand out sugar-coated lies. We give you the reality that transforms lives.